Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Administrative Committee this afternoon. First on our agenda is the approval of Administrative Committee meeting minutes from October 28th.
I move we approve the minutes.
Second. All right, so done. Next is the disbursement report for October 2024 with Sarah Decker.
Hi.
Hi.
All right. So looking at the accounts payable report for month ending October 31st, 2024, total expenditures were $6,722,156.49. And for the first time in a long time, payroll is actually the second largest expenditure at $1,230,835. Our largest expenditure was our upfront payment we made for our new Pierce ladder truck, and that was $1,549,896. I actually have several other payments to point out. We made two payments towards the 2024 A Street reconstruction project. That was $303,951.36 and $156,345.57. There was a reimbursement payment for costs associated with the Mountain View Improvements Project. That was $179,778.12. IS purchased a multi-software package for $90,402.31. We made the first of two payments to iCrimp for our FY25 annual insurance premium, and that was $253,766. And we made a payment towards the alley east of Washington 5th Street to 8th Street project for $276,337.38. We made our WITCOM payment for the months of October through December for $194,218.50. We purchased a new RC mower for parks for $66,995.12, and we made our annual contribution payment to PBAC for $53,750.
Wow.
It's a big
Spending
month.
some money this
It's a
month.
big month.
It's like it's the holidays or something.
Yeah, I actually had to type it out just to make sure I had them all this time.
Yeah, the start of the fiscal year is a big one for making those annual payments. As a reminder, the University of Idaho did pay for half of the ladder truck. So we did receive that funding before making that payment.
I just have one question, because I saw that we've got it makes sense that the U of I payment is going to go towards the Bursar, but it notes street maintenance agreement 1 of 2, and then it says it says MS 281, and I didn't know if that was meant to be like Moscow School District 281, but is that just like our general street sharing maintenance for the campus portion?
Where are you looking?
So it'd be the last item on the major expenditures on the bottom.
Yeah, it's cut off on this PDF, but it's not-
$43,838.50 for the street maintenance agreement.
I was guessing it's just our standing existing.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the MS 2281 stands for.
Okay,
Um,
but if it's
Stormwater permit.
okay, cool,
Okay.
love it.
Not Moscow School District.
Yeah, I was like,
Yeah.
is the extra 2 a typo? And that's what I was wondering. But yeah, if it's just for our standing street maintenance agreement, I don't have any concerns, just idle curiosity. So,
Sure.
yeah.
All right, thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Have a good Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Next on the agenda is the personnel policy update with Bonnie Denler. Hi, Bonnie.
Hi,
Hi, happy Monday. Okay, I did this time around kind of try to give you guys a easier to digest document to go through all
You're
of the
good to
various changes. So we are in the process of making a number of updates and a couple of additions to the City of Moscow personnel policy. So in addition to changes throughout the entire document reflecting the title change for city supervisor going to city administrator, we have 13 policy edits and 2 policies requesting to be added into the personnel policies this go around. Of the 13 policies that we are looking at changing, the majority of the reason for bringing those forward are to add in language related to our paramedic firefighter positions based on federal regulations surrounding the Fair Labor Standards Act and the way in which those positions are exempted or eligible for overtime, there were policy changes that we needed to do so that we are capturing what their hours and exemptions look like versus other employee types. And that impacted a couple of other policies to make sure we had those languages updated. In addition, with those policies, any policy that we reviewed, we also reviewed just for basic updating or clarification of language while we were already out there making edits to the policy. We did have one policy that needed, or two policies that are being adjusted based on federal requirement changes. So one of those is our equal employment opportunity changes being made to requests for religious accommodations, and that's based on a 2003 Supreme Court decision that required our employers to add a little bit more language into the kind of reasons that we could deny religious accommodations. So it's just simply adding in language to capture that requirement through that 2023 Supreme Court decision. The other is adding in language related to it's called the PUMP Act, so the Providing Urgent Maternal Protections for Nursing Mothers Act, and that is adding language for break and meal periods based on updated requirements through the Department of Labor and FLSA requirements for providing break time for nursing and pumping mothers. Other policy updates that were made, again, we're just clarifying based on questions that may have come in. Our bereavement policy, previously it had language and definitions for who was included or eligible for bereavement leave based on our nepotism policy, and they just didn't match. So the intent was to try to clean up that policy and clarify what eligible family members or what members of the family were eligible for use of bereavement leave. And then and I'm like, other two policies for adding, we added the inclement weather and emergency closure policies. And that was just to formalize an internal processes. That one specifically came based on the
Natural gas outage is kind of the unusual one. We ended up, when we have times when we close city offices to no fault of the employee, we continue to pay their compensation and not require them to take paid leave. So this pretty much formalizes as a policy. Those that are required to still report to work as essential employees would then receive overtime during that time period. So this just helps formalize that process. And then certainly employees during those poor weather events that choose that they think it's unsafe to come to work, they certainly would have to take leave. But it's when the city closes offices. Now, if it's inclement and they don't think they can travel to work, they certainly have options, which is take paid leave. If a supervisor can approve them to work remotely, if that's possible with their position, they certainly can do that as well. But it just kind of formalizes those two situations and then does make it the employee's responsibility to make a determination whether it's safe for them to travel for work.
And then the other policy that we're looking at adding is just for confidentiality. Again, there are already internal processes and departments that do have formal confidentiality agreements, but based on the nature of almost every position here, it is just a requirement in place for incoming and individuals to sign confidentiality agreements at the time of hire and every 3 years. And it's just, again, based on their own individual position and the confidential information that they have access to. So sorry, I kind of just went through
Nope, that's great.
general, all the different things that we are looking at, and happy to answer any more detailed questions on any of the specific policies.
It sounds like in all of the policies you went through that none of them are really like brand new. They're things that either haven't been on paper but have been in practice, or you're just honing in some language. Is that right?
That would be correct.
Okay.
I have a couple questions, Madam Chair. Was I reading the bereavement policy right, that it's immediate family and that does not extend to grandparents?
No, it does.
Okay.
So it actually, so what I will say is there had been an update to that policy back before I had started. I think that was the 21 or 22 changes. And the language said for immediate and extended and household members. It didn't go into detail, but then it had the list of individuals based on the nepotism policy, which just really, to me, I think
Muddies the
was a little
waters.
confusing. It is one policy that I had received a number of questions for clarification
Mhm.
from employees on. And so Bill and I, when looking through it, looked at what is the intent and what is that practice moving forward. So it does allow for immediate family members, individuals within the household. So that would be your domestic partners or children of domestic partners, and then extended family. So those individuals that are within like the second degree. So grandparents, grandchildren,
Aunts,
aunts,
uncles, niece, nephew, and first cousins.
and first cousins. So
That seems
it does
generous.
actually, it
I see
ac-
when
Yeah.
we were listing out immediate family, and I see now the edits in red that say aunt, uncle, grandparent, but I wanted to make sure grandparents were included. I'm glad we've got second
Yes.
degree in there. So,
yeah,
So
it
that
actually
helps.
expands the
Yeah.
who is eligible
Mhm.
for it by quite a bit.
awesome. And then I was really glad to see the nursing. I know it is something that we were required to do to be in compliance with FMLA, but I'm glad to see it documented. My question was, I'm having not been a nursing mother, I'm noodling on if it is standard for the 15-minute twice daily break for the nursing to be counted as the 15-minute break,
Mhm.
because from what I hear from my friends who do nurse, like it is still work. Like it's not exactly a break when you are nursing or pumping for that matter. Is that kind of standard rollout to use the 15-minute nursing break in lieu of the 15-minute break?
Yeah, that is so. If you look across the US and the way that the act has been kind of implemented,
Yeah.
it just indicates that you need to provide them with adequate break time. It actually doesn't indicate that it needs to be paid break
Okay.
time or any of those. And so that really then goes back to the state or the individual agency and determining how that will look.
Okay.
Because we have a policy regarding rest periods that are paid rest periods of 15 minutes, it needs to be extended for that break time for pumping mothers as well.
Okay.
That is consistent with how FLSA and the Department of Labor kind of mandate. They say you need to have a policy. It needs to allow for adequate break time. If you provide paid break time for other individuals, that same allotted break time needs to be provided for nursing
mothers.
or
Okay.
pumping mothers. And so, yes, that is there. Now, in the policy, we also indicated like accommodation because pumping may take more than that. And so, in terms of accommodating a mother who may need to go above and beyond that paid 15-minute break and just make schedule adjustments,
Okay.
or may need to take additional leave to cover that additional time needed for pumping.
Okay.
Also, the expectation would be there are some mothers who during the time that they're pumping are also working that would not be paid. That's not a break.
Right.
That is that time and break is not required for that. You need to be relieved fully
Right.
of any of your work duties in order for it to constitute a break under those conditions, and those are laid out in that
Okay.
those regulations as well. So, but we did keep it in line with what our current practice is for our rest breaks.
I love it. And then my lingering question on nursing is, do we have adequate facilities? We're not making people pump in coat closets,
Yeah.
and or is that something we need to be considering as far as infrastructure or capital improvement projects? But
Yeah, I mean, definitely something always to consider, but currently we provide space that is available for individuals that are in need of it, that are either pumping or are in need of those lactation spaces.
Yeah.
So we have dedicated
Cool.
lactation rooms. There's one over at the PD that is specific for lactation. And then we also have one that is here in City Hall up on the third floor. And again, it is also for lactation. So
Cool.
we have gone through to make sure that number one, we're meeting the requirements for having that lactation space, and then also making sure that it is available to those individuals that are coming back to
Cool.
work or are in need of it. And I will tell you that is something that when we receive notification of individuals being in those situations, where I am working with them to ensure that we have adequate space for them, and whether they're able to use the space here or if there's something else that we need to do for them in their specific
I
location.
appreciate it. I love that.
Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Any
What do we need to
questions?
do on that?
recommend approval of the proposed resolution. Does it have to go before full council?
So personnel policies could go on consent. I would generally recommend that they be on regular agenda.
I'm fine with regular.
Great.
Put it
Just
on
because
regular.
they are
approval.
more
Just 'cause we
substantive.
want to see you again, Bonnie.
That's right.
And I think the paramedic updates are interesting.
Yes.
I'm guessing a lot of them hopefully were easy for you to implement because I'm guessing with federal and or union agreements.
Yeah, they certainly were
framework
not.
needed.
There was a lot that.
Interesting schedule.
Very weird schedules.
Very weird schedules, yep.
Yes, I know. It's definitely very weird schedules and things that we have to make sure we have in place. So they definitely look different.
Right.
And we certainly want to make sure we're capturing
Right.
everything
All
we
of it.
need. So
Love
You
it.
can, in fact, sleep on the job. Yeah.
when you're a firefighter or paramedic, you can. Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. All right, next on the agenda is the city shop replacement with Cody. Hey, Cody.
How are you? Okay. Well, this is a project that's been, I think, long in the making.
I'll say.
Kind of the deficiencies of the existing city shop that you can see on the screen there. As you'll recall, we've been working on a design for a new shop facility with Lombard Conrad Architects for, oh gosh, the better part of this last year. We got to the point where late summer, early fall, we had a 50% concept design and recognized that the costs were significant and needed to explore perhaps changes to the design to incur some savings. With that, and I just wanted to highlight this briefly. We actually, from the 50% design stage to where the design is today and the design that went out to bid, we actually reduced the size of the building by eliminating a wash bay, shifting the building to the south, which greatly reduced the size of the building, and then the significant amount of grading, concrete retaining wall work that needed to be done to
Wash
try
bay
to.
wasn't a huge deal.
What's that?
The wash bay wasn't a huge deal. or-
We had always anticipated. I mean, it was. I don't want to say a luxury item,
Uh-huh.
but there are other places on site that we can accommodate that at a much greater or much lower cost. So with after those changes, we did put the project out to bid. The project that went out to bid included the base bid, which is the almost 19,000 square foot new shop that we can see here. Included a deduct alternate, which for an inferior cladding system for that new building, less insulation and more of a traditional metal wall panel. It included a second alternate, which was a much needed dry material storage shed. And then the third alternate that was included was a recladding and re-roofing of the existing building that we do hope to get another 15 to 20 years out of. So timeline, the project that just explained was advertised late September, early October. A pre-bid meeting middle of October, which was attended by a significant number of people. We were quite pleased. And then we opened the bids on November 6th. With the bid opening, we did have a total of seven bids. They ranged from 7.2 million to 11.2 million. The engineer's estimate, and I should clarify, I'm comparing the bid. This numbers I've included here don't include that deduct, that alternate that for the inferior siding. So with that, that's the range from the 7.248 to the 11.2. Engineer's estimate was 6.1. So you can see the lowest bid was still, 19% higher than the architect's estimate, but it was a complete responsive bid. I think Bill's going to go through, we're comfortable from a funding perspective, from a capital perspective, that we can cover this safely and complete a very a much needed project. So our recommendation for you today is that you forward to council a recommendation to accept that low bid from Wellens General Contractors for that base bid, and then the two alternatives, the dry material storage shed, and then the recladding and re-roofing of the existing shop building. And then it is standard approval for construction change orders by staff that don't exceed 10% of the contract amount. I would note that Wellens, and it was referenced in your CCSR, that Wellens is actually the contractor we worked with on the police station recently, and that turned out quite well. So that's my recommendation. I think Bill had some additional input on just the funding model that gets us to this point.
So as Cody indicated, in order to award these bids, we will need to bring in about an additional 1.1 million in funding to the project.
6 from ARPA, right?
We have about 3.2 million from ARPA that the council reallocated to this project from water capital. So there is a sizable portion, roughly half the project, just under half will be funded with ARPA funds. The remaining will be from capital accumulation that we've been saving up for the project. During open budget for the past fiscal year, FY 2024, we had a little over 3 million in additional capital funding that we were able to move into the capital projects fund. So that additional, what we've been accumulating already, along with that additional 3 million, we do have available funding to be able to apply the additional 1.1 million to award the project as bid. I will caution there's additional work yet to be done. So when we were initially scoping it, we were looking at the new facility. Once we kind of got that design underway, we did look at the existing building. We do need to get at least that 20, probably maybe 30 years of life out of that existing structure, which led us to adding the recladding to the bid project. But there will be some interior renovation work we also will likely want to do in the facility. Again, we'll bring that back to the council once that's been defined and we have a scope and an estimated cost for council's approval to move forward with that. But so there will be more than the 1.1 million. Probably it will be less than another million added to the project in total. But if we can get all of that completed this upcoming year, we will be set at the shop for our probably the next 30 years life. All of the fleet facility, the park shops, remodeling the existing shop facility for streets and storm that will remain in that building, and taking care of the material storage, shifting entrance onto Polk, I think we'll be in a good position for the next 30 years out of that facility. So short answer is we do have additional capital funding we were able to move last year to fund this shortfall, and we would like to see the council support moving it forward.
I have a question. It seems like this is a second or third time we've had some sort of bid come out, and we've been really short on what we bid out. Is that just because things are fluctuating so much in the market, or I mean, $1 million's a lot.
Yeah, and it's almost entirely on the new shop facility.
Yeah.
If you look at like the material storage, dry material storage structure, that was 36,000 under estimate. Recladding of the existing shop was about 100,000 over estimate. But the main shop building itself was $1,072,000 over estimate. Yeah, I'd like to understand that as well. The architects had reported that they
Recently.
they had bid some similar projects fairly recently. We do get a fair amount of variability in Moscow because of somewhat of our geographic isolation. When you start getting into commercial scale buildings, we do tend to get some variation. We don't normally see bids from any local contractors that are going to come out of the Spokane, Coeur d'Alene market or Joseph, Oregon, which is where Wellens is based, of all places. So it's frustrating for us as we try to plan these projects. And at some point, we talk about, should we just be adding 30% to every, and we see it more often than not on buildings.
Yeah.
We don't see it as much on heavy construction because there's much more heavy construction being bid every year. We've got a better sense of the cost.
Yeah.
And so we don't see it in really the heavy civil side. Where we see it mostly is when we're dealing with buildings and structures. And we just don't do those very often. And I think there's just not a lot of it being constructed by the public sector other than the university at times to give us good market numbers for our specific geographic location. So the estimate being off by 19% is frustrating and disappointing to us. The good thing here is we did have 7 bids.
Yeah.
And we had 2 contractors that were being very aggressive between Geno and Wellens. And the reality is that is, I think, in this current market, that is the cost of the structure. I think we have enough information and enough bids to give us reassurance that this is truly the cost, regardless of what the estimate was, which that is certainly a frustration to us. But it is true. It's, if you had that and you had a single bid, then you might question whether you proceed with it. You get 7 bids, 2 or 3 pretty close to each other. You've got a good sense that is currently the market price. And we did hear some reports that metal buildings cost are are very variable right now.
Mhm.
And so you may have some contractors building in some escalation they may see in steel prices and steel buildings that is part component of it. But again, given the grouping of a couple of these bids being really pretty good and tight, it does give us a good
Okay.
indication this is the cost. And for the city's benefit, I think if we look to rebid, you won't save anything.
No.
We really would have to come back and trim 20% off the building if we really want to make that savings. And then you don't know what kind of cost escalation you're going to see between now
Sure.
and then. And so I think to meet the city's long-term needs, the best direction is to move forward and to award. But yeah, certainly frustrating.
Where's our dry material storage now?
So there's a,
Is it like the
yeah,
salt?
it's a
and
fabric.
sand?
So it's salt and sand storage. It's kind of reminds me of a mini ice rink. It's a fabric covered hoop structure there, and the fabric is deteriorating and falling apart out in the shop. So this would replace it with a permanent pole and metal roof structure.
And the 3 million has to be
The 3.2 has to be obligated by the end of 2024,
Okay.
which would be contract awarded and signed, and then has to be expended by the end of 2026.
And how close were the bidders? Like, I know you said Spokane. Did you say Spokane? I
So
mean,
the-
geographically.
So the
geographically.
Was anybody local?
So no, I mean, the closest local contractor was Quality Construction. I think they're technically based out of Deary. Their base bid on the shop building was 9 million. Keniston is based out of Lewiston. They were a little over 7,041,000 on the base building. I'm not familiar with Farber, or Walker or Wright Brothers.
Wright Brothers was from Boyd. Yeah, Treasure Valley.
Treasure Valley. Geno is out of Coeur d'Alene, and Wellens is out of Joseph Enterprise, Oregon area.
I have a question. So assuming this all goes hunky-dory, are they able to work on the new shop with limited impact to current shop operations? I mean, the footprints look pretty
Yep.
close, but wanted to confirm.
It'll be a little bit, one of the first things they'll have to do is work on that entry point onto Polk. So that's the thing we've identified in phasing has to happen first
Okay.
because the new construction is going to cut off the current access to the facility. So that'll have to occur first. And then they can proceed with construction on the new building. And we have it sequenced out, between new building, which probably the south end, the fleet facility will be completed first. There'll be some open bays that existing occupants of the existing shop can move into temporarily while they then start working on cladding and while the park shop is being wrapped up. So we do have kind of a calendar that flows with the workflow, the seasonal workflow at the shop that should work well.
I'm comfortable accepting as is. My request would be that it would be to go to full council. My thought being,
Sure.
Yeah, mine too.
We're going to spend $7
It's a
million.
big-
We
it's a
should
big
probably
investment.
all talk about it.
and with that, because I think we've all been on council when we were first getting the conversation about reallocating the 3 million. I would love to revisit some of those pictures of like the water just like flowing through the shop, the holes in the ceiling, and just paint the better picture for our citizens. We're familiar with those
Remind them
talking
with the-
points,
of
but
what the
remind them
project's
why a city shop is
Why the
really
need.
important.
Absolutely.
And then maybe just an additional small table clarifying where that 7 million total is coming from, to your point, Bill, about 3 coming from ARPA,
Oh, yeah.
whatever's coming, getting reallocated, but just, I don't want it to turn into a misunderstood talking point that like we are, the reason your city taxes are so high is because we want a Cadillac city shop. No, I want my hardworking city folks who save us money by outfitting our
To not
police
have to
cars
get
and things like
waiters.
that,
Yeah.
to not get
have to work
waiters.
in waiters.
And to be able to distribute us with, at no cost, citizens, the sandbags and things like that as needed. So
Certainly.
just help package it, because I don't have concerns being
No, I
in
don't
favor of
either.
this, but, and that'd be nice for Drew to be able to see, and Bryce, because I don't remember if they were on council. So,
That's true. All right.
so
So we're going to put this on regular agenda with
Rec-
recommending acceptance of the low bid.
I recommend.
Sounds
I
perfect.
said that backwards, but you get it.
We know what you mean.
Sounds good.
thanks,
Thank
Cody.
you.
Next on the agenda is the development agreement for 2216 South Main Street, the Fountains Business Park. With Bob.
Where'd he go?
I know, me too. I was.
Good afternoon. You'll have to excuse me. I'm at the tail end of a cold.
The one that everyone has.
glad it's
Yeah.
I don't know if everyone else's included pink eye, but mine did.
Oh no, kids
And
in the
it's
house.
been-
Yeah.
Extra bonus.
Yeah, it's been awful. So I will sit way over here at this corner. So this afternoon, I'm here to talk to you about the development agreement for 2216 South Main, which is also known as the Fountains Business Park. For those who aren't familiar with where the Fountains Business Park is, this is the park that we're referring to. This is subject property, includes all the way down to the river. And this is South Main Street, US 95. And then this is Palouse River Drive would be up here. A little bit of the background. This property was annexed almost a year ago. One of the requirements of the annexation was that they hook up to city water and sewer. So staff has been in communication with the new owner of the property, Joel Cohen, on how to get that to happen. Some more background. The area is currently served by one single water line that comes from almost all the way across the highway and comes to a fire hydrant right here at the corner of South Main and what is eventually going to be Nelson Avenue. And this is currently a 6-inch water line. It's 6 inches is smaller than what our current standards allow for what we would consider a main. And so there were some concerns, and that line is already serving two services. There's one service that serves the Fountain residents, and then there is also one service that serves the lift station, which is right there in that area. So there was some concern about adding more services to an already undersized line. And through discussions with the owner, he is interested in doing more than the bare minimum on upgrading the sewer and water system rather than just trying to hook up the existing buildings. He does have, I wouldn't say he has plans, he has ideas for maybe doing some additional development out there. And so he's looking at just rather than, he wants to do
Big ones.
he wants to dig once. And so he's looking at bringing in better fire suppression and a better sewer system that would be able to accommodate more development. Problem is we have that existing 6-inch water line. So we did some modeling, came to the determination that what we needed there was a 10-inch line. That 10-inch line would not only serve the Fountain development, it would also be a line that would in the future head east and would connect to Nelson Avenue, which is a little further east, and it's currently in development. So we were interested in having that upgraded to a 10-inch line. And through those discussions, we kind of thought it was prudent to do the upsizing, and that the city should probably pay for some of that upsizing, as it's our desire to extend that line to the east, and it isn't necessarily necessary to serve the Cohen property, the Fountain Park. So Cohen did ask his contractor, which is 4G Contracting, to give us a quote for how to do that work, to replace that line and replace it with a 10-inch line. And he came back with a price tag of $57,000. We did reach out to a third-party contractor and asked for a quote from them. We reached out to Albright's out of Lewiston. They came back with a $68,000 price tag. So we feel pretty comfortable with going with the 4G quote. Other than that, it's your kind of your typical development agreement, with the exception of a lot of the stuff that you would see maybe in a subdivision, but it does include us funding that cost to replace that 6-inch line with the 10-inch line, and then it does. As per our typical development agreements, a 1-year warranty would be required for all of the public improvements that he's installing, the new water line and the new sewer line. And he will be required to put in a warranty security for that 1-year period. Staff is recommending, I should adjust that, recommending forwarding a recommendation for approval of the development agreement with 2216 South Main, also known as Fountain Business Park. Do you guys have any questions?
Have you, I'm trying to figure out the right way to phrase this. Is this the timeline you've been looking at to do something like this? Clearly, you know that, I mean, you're building out anyway. Is this before the timeline you had in mind, or is this about the right stage?
Well, the timeline, we haven't really necessarily set the timeline. The timeline has kind of always been, the connection of that Nelson Avenue has always kind of been with the eventual development of that Fountain property that currently sits between that kind of Nelson Avenue business park and the Trinity Church. At that time, Nelson Avenue would likely get extended and connected, and all the water and sewer facilities would then get connected through there. So I wouldn't say that we necessarily had a timeline for it, but it is anticipated with the development of that Fountain property.
Has this been budgeted because of that? I guess that's what I was trying to lead up to. I had to work that through my head.
No, I mean, this has not been an identified improvement or project on the city's capital improvement plan. This would largely be like Bob indicated, a development-driven improvement at that point in time. The oddity of this one is it's a smaller scale project that upon annexation, we made a condition that they connect to city water because it was within 300 feet of the property, with the assumption they're going to be connecting to that 6-inch main. After further review, we've looked at that 6-inch main, looked at it's being inadequate. It's really a hydrant lead that other services have been tapped off to, which is not a standard process. It's not what we really want, the water system. So it's a combination of our condition they connect, but now we were finding our main is inadequate to serve in that. And so it seemed appropriate for the city to participate in just replacing that section across the highway. Then they're responsible for all of their mains within their project, but at least we're getting that point of connection to a point that has adequate capacity and then has us set up for future development to the east and extend it. So not a project we had previously identified. Certainly we have appropriations for both main and capital water main improvements this year and adequate reserves to be able to fund this scope of work.
I guess just a follow-up, and I know it's looking into a crystal ball, so I apologize for that. But are there other developments in that area? Because, I mean, it seems to be developing rather quickly, which is neither here nor there. But is there anything else coming up that we may have to tap on to that we have lines we need to make larger?
I was thinking the Wasson Carey thing. We just
most everything. So when we did, and Bob managed that, the US 95 Thorn Creek utility improvements, we extended services to all properties at that point in time of adequate size that we felt were necessary to serve them. And we did fund those as part of that because we did not want to dig up in the future underneath the highway.
So I was looking at a domino effect.
Yeah. So we kind of did that as we were doing this. This section was outside of that extension. And so it's just north of where we did those utility extensions in advance of the highway project. So we should be largely set up for service to properties south and properties to the east. Long term, we do need to look at other looped connections in the area because we're kind of in an area of dead ends right now. So as Nelson were to be extended or Myrtle to be developed and the other areas we've kind of identified for future industrial development of Fountains Holdings to the east here, getting loops through and connected back to the city's water system will be our long-term goal. Helps improve flow and water quality in the area.
Is there a hard line between when the city pays for improvements and when the developer pays for improvements? Like, what determines who pays when a developer wants to develop an area?
So usually, so we have a combination of things. Typically, the developer is primarily responsible. In this instance, that main, we again thought we were going to be serving off that existing line. Turned out that it was, at the time of imposing that condition, and we felt, given the nature of the situation, the city would bring that 10-inch in. But oftentimes we will oversize utilities. So a developer, and there's one happening just to the south with that we're currently working on the Soto project, where they may need an 8-inch to serve their development, but we want a 10 or 12 because this can extend in the future and serve property to the beyond their development. And so we will pay the differential cost of upsizing those mains. So more often than not, developments are coming off an existing suitable point of service, and then we are generally funding to increase size for capacity to development that's beyond that individual developer's needs. This one's a little bit of an unusual one. Oftentimes, like we're doing the utilities ahead of the Thorn Creek project. While we're there, we funded all those, and it was putting it in place for future use, not knowing what that use may be, but ensuring that we had an adequate service to the property so that we, didn't dig up the highway again in the future, and we didn't create excuses to develop outside the city because of, something was cost prohibitive. And so it's not a hard line. Usually the basis are developers typically responsible for most everything except oversizing costs that we will generally participate in. This one, that line's just set up already in a deficient manner based on kind of historical practices that we felt it was appropriate for the city to just update that highway crossing, get services off that hydrant lead, and then they can bring their connection off of that main.
Did we know it was a 6-inch main when we approved that?
I don't know.
Is that our mistake that we thought, oh, it'll be fine, and then now we're going back to fix it?
Yeah, I don't know if that was known at the time.
I was not involved in the discussions at that time.
I'm just trying to find the black and white in an area that's not very black and white, I think, so. All right.
I have 2 questions, if that's okay. I'm trying to understand the impact to neighbors during construction and if that's on us or on the landowner to mitigate. But if they're is Fountain Park the only user of that 6-inch?
So I think as Fountain residents in the lift station, typically it will build a line parallel and then we'll just switch services over to the new line and with limited interruption.
And then my other question is, I see in the agreement, it's written that says the developer will have says the developer requests 24 months to complete the required public improvements. That 2 years seems long. I don't know if that's standard or.
12 months is our typical time period. This was, I think the developer had not anticipated some of these obligations or responsibilities. And so we were giving some additional time for them to be brought into compliance.
And so does that also mean that the city has a little more time to does that make it harder or easier for you to plan financially for when we have to pay our share?
Depending on the time, it could be, make it easier for us. We would not reimburse till work is completed.
Okay. Those are my 2 questions.
It would potentially give us the ability to schedule it into the CIP program and fund it outside of the developer participation. I think we have like 50 grand in water development participation in the budget right now. So this would
take all of that.
This would take all of that. If they do end up taking more time, we could probably schedule it into the
Next fiscal year even, or
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
All right. We want to recommend approval for the development agreement with Joel Cohen.
Yeah.
That was
Yeah, dig once.
enthusiastic.
Dig once makes sense. I'm ready to I'm kind of anticipating it being heartburn with a 2-year runway and knowing that 95 is targeted to open with the new realignment spring of 25. I'm really looking forward to those angry citizen emails when we've got a partial tear up over.
Yeah, but they're also going to get them if the line doesn't work, right? So I don't think we
Right,
can
fair enough.
judge our.
No,
our,
you're
you
right.
know.
You're right. Yeah, recommending
It's gotta-
approval is fine.
So you're
Um,
recommending approval?
Yeah, and can we put that on consent?
Again,
I'm fine with consent for that one.
All right.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Sorry
Feel
for all
better
the
soon.
questions. Next on the agenda is the Leading Idaho Local Bridge Grant application with Alyssa. Thank you.
I am here to flip the script.
All right.
Ooh.
Money in.
I'm not asking for a dime.
All right. No offense, Bob. She's our favorite person right now.
Mhm.
So today before you, we have the Leading Idaho Local Bridge Grant request. Just a little bit of history. Back in March of 2022, Governor Little signed into effect Senate Bill 1359, and that designated a chunk of state money, which came from ARPA funds actually originally, to Idaho, but it was designated at that point for $200 million to local bridges and then $10 million to the Child Pedestrian Safety Program. The state Idaho Transportation Department contracts with LTAC, which is the Local Highway Technical Assistance Council, to manage this program from them. Since that original allocation, because of the need and the number of applications submitted, that fund has now been increased to $567 million for bridges. We received word last week, actually, that one of our bridges that I've described in here was inspected on the 5th of September, but we didn't get the bridge report until last week. But under the program, bridges have to have been downgraded in their levels. So just to make it simple, like if it's a level 5, probably doesn't get funded, but if you take it down to a level 4, it will. And I think in the report that I sent out to you, there were pictures of what it showed the damage was for the bridge. Under this program, the city does not have to contribute to the project. It's fully managed by LTAC, which includes design and construction. And just a little tidbit here, we did receive a prior award for the Sand Road Bridge, and we had applied for that back in 20, I want to say late 22, early 23. We didn't know we were awarded until last fall or early this year, actually. But it is now on the transportation schedule, and they're starting to work on design. Design will last for a year until October of next year, and they're anticipating bidding that, having construction in 26. The price tag on the replacement of that bridge is $1.9 million.
Wow.
So, back to the bridge at hand. It's located 3rd Street, where 3rd hits Mountain View, where the pedestrian bridge is just north of that and before Hillcrest. And so it's not a bridge that you really see. It runs, the Paradise Creek kind of runs behind that Harvest, the new, where the duplexes are being built right there. And the old, kind of the older subdivision. The Hawk Signal, it's just north of that.
I'm having I don't know why I'm having such a hard time thinking of what this bridge
Yeah.
is.
Here's the,
Just south of Bean Hillcrest, there was a bridge crossing there. The creek goes and flows behind Hillcrest
it.
and Damon.
is it Mosier, the turn, if you're headed northbound, that next turn on the, no, not Mosier.
No, Hillcrest.
It is Hillcrest.
So Hillcrest Bridge and Damon makes cul-de-sac. The creek flows through that area and then crosses Mountain View, and then it crosses where 3rd Street is and 6th Street and back.
It's a
So
bridge you take for granted, for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that one I
there's
paid.
railing, but you don't really notice it.
Right.
But from the pictures that were shown in the bridge report, the bottom of the culvert is rusted out, both culverts. And so the
How long does
inspection.
that take? Do you know?
To get rusted out.
You probably don't know, but
Well,
that's a mean
in
question
the
to
report,
ask.
I think the bridge was originally built,
It says, scrolling.
I want to say 96, but I
Okay.
think that's
That's
too
pretty good.
early. It might have been the top was redone.
1992. So it's
92.
Wow,
still-
well, that's
Okay.
pretty good.
And I would have brought the report with me,
Oh,
but I hadn't printed it
Mhm.
and we didn't have printer services. So, but it did rate it as being a 5 previously, but due to the extended rust of the bottom cross sections, which are completely rusted out, it was rated up to, downgraded to a 4. And it also downrated the channel widespread minor defects for vegetation. So they'll clean out the channel area, we're hoping to, and that will help with some of our blockages in the creek and flooding. So the application is attached. Some of the questions I have to fill out, but what I needed to get before you today was the resolution and the agreement, so that could be on the agenda for council. We don't at this time know how much it will cost, but the money is not coming from the city, which
Yeah.
is great. So before you today, I'm requesting approval to submit that application along with the memorandum of understanding and the corresponding resolution.
Yes.
Yeah.
And can we put that on consent?
We can.
Great.
My only question is if, did you say it took a full year for us to find out that our
Yeah.
previous application?
Well, like we rated 118th in the original ratings, and they just kept working down.
Oh, okay.
And so we just kept watching. And then Scott got a phone call one day that the geotech folks were out there doing some testing. And then,
Yeah.
so we
Yeah.
don't actually
So you-
sign a
'Cause we don't
contract
do
or
any-
anything.
Yeah.
We don't administer it. And yeah, it was sub-consultants that notified us that we even were awarded at that time.
Great.
Right.
Curious,
And
okay.
so basically when the asset is completed, then we'll get a report from ITD and LTAC how much it cost. And then that's when it will come onto our books as an asset.
Nice.
And-
Great.
So I would anticipate probably this project to be 3 to 4 years out. This is the very last round of this funding. And I did speak with Layla LTAC, and she said they're hoping to continue to fund whatever they receive in this application process and get
Great.
those bridges repaired and built. So
Yeah, if we're out of ARPA money and the state's still funding it, I mean,
Yeah.
like I said, it's a bridge I easily ignore, so I'm happy to know we have an opportunity
Yeah.
to fund it and not have to hit our piggy bank for it. So
Yeah.
I'm game.
the upper part of the culvert is still good, but with the lower part rusted out, then it will start to sag,
Yep.
and then that will disrupt our
Mm.
roadway, and
Mhm.
we need to keep Mountain View
Yeah.
safe. So
For here.
Thank you so much.
thank you.
All right, next on the agenda is the 2025 Whitcomb Emergency Dispatch Agreement.
So this is our annual update for dispatch services that we receive from Whitcomb, which is a joint dispatch center located over in Pullman. The contract has changed significantly this year in just its structure and form. Whitcomb took it on themselves that they or desired to update agreements due to, I guess, some thoughts they had on language that they wanted to have addressed. It doesn't materially change the services provided. We did provide a fair amount of edits back, and which they accepted. So we are comfortable with the agreement as it's currently structured, but it does look different than the agreement we've been approving for the past several years. The cost for service, I think I mentioned $776,874. So this will remain the same as what we're currently paying for the calendar year that we are rapidly coming up on the close of. So fees have not been increased for next year. And staff would recommend that the committee recommend approval of the agreement with Whitcomb for dispatch services.
Seems like this has been a bit of a battle this year to get all.
We worked through, I think we got kind of presented the new form of agreement in November of last year. We asked for some time. We asked to actually renew our existing agreement for this current calendar year, which Whitcomb ultimately agreed to. We provided comments, I think, back in March, and we kind of just recently got their feedback on our comments here in the last couple months and kind of worked through resolution between the two of us. So yeah, it took a little bit of time this year to work through this new form of agreement, but we're comfortable with how it's currently structured.
In the past 3 years, sorry, it's all blurred together, but we've had Whitcomb come and talk to us about their services. Or Is that a normal thing? Was that because of a conflict? I forget why they came and did that.
I had.
I'm trying to recall the last time we had an
Wendy
update.
came,
Because they were so short-staffed
Last year,
and
and
we
I
didn't know
had-
what was going on.
yeah, I think it was maybe previous to us receiving their report this time last year. And one of the things when I had sat in on as just a listener to their board meetings, staffing was still a significant issue, and also wanting us to understand. I mean, it's one of our largest contracts that we have to fulfill.
Mhm.
And so I just said, Wendy, would you like to come and give a presentation? And I think we invited her. And from that, I think she was able to kind of do a push for hiring conversation and talk about what they had done to improve dispatcher pay and benefits and things like that. So it wasn't normal.
Yeah, and
It's a misunderstood thing. So I was very
they've
curious.
definitely been struggling with staffing. I think they've made some minor improvements. I think it's some slow and steady improvements. For a period of time, they had retained some traveling dispatchers, kind of similar to a traveling nurse, to help them out. I think they've now terminated that service and are just focusing on trying to fill existing regular positions. So, but I think they are making some slow and steady progress. I mean, all the public safety recruitment is a challenge, and they're no different than anybody else.
Okay.
Questions?
No.
Questions from you?
Just the one is Chief Dollinger, who is sitting in on the board meetings as our city rep.
Correct.
All right. We recommend the approval of the emergency dispatch services agreement.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think we should do it consent.
Okay.
Perfect. Thank you.
I love when I turn the page, that's what I see. That wasn't really what I
Thanks,
was
everybody.
expecting.
Have a good Thanksgiving. Safe
Thank you.
travels, all those things, if
Yeah.
anybody's traveling.
Eat some good pie.